Welcome to Gen Z Hoops, the Gen Z basketball, coaching, and sports business show.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Gen Z Hoops podcast. Today, I'm joined by two-time WNBA champion, six-time All-Star, and currently a player relations and development manager for the WNBA, Miss Taj McWilliams-Franklin. How are you doing today, ma'am?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on. This is really awesome.
Oh, no problem. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. Before we dive into your career right now, can you start our little conversation here about talking a little bit about your connection to the game of basketball?
Yeah, I grew up in a basketball family. I wish I could say that. That's not true. I grew up in a basketball loving family. My dad loved the Philadelphia 76ers, the old school 76ers. And one of my early memories is him going to play on the blacktop outside and me sitting on the side because I'm from the South. So there were no girls playing. There were no women playing when I was younger. And I didn't care anyway because I just wanted to be around my dad. As I grew up, I knew about sports, but never played them. Not until my high school coach, who became my high school coach, stopped me in the hallway and asked me if I wanted to play. And I was like, play what? And she said basketball. I was like, no, thank you, and moved on. And she kept hounding me about it, and told me I could go to college for free. And I'm from a underrepresented, impoverished neighborhood. My family, no one in my family at that time had been to college. And so it was a dream of mine to go to college and be the first in my family to graduate from college. So I was intrigued, to say the least, and I was 15. So I started playing at 15. My dad agreed, and the rest is history or herstory. I don't know. It depends on your line of thinking.
Yeah, most definitely. I actually have like similar story actually. Like my mom and her sister, they're like really into watching like the NBA. They never played or anything like that, but they were all in love with like Dwayne Wade and the Miami Heat. So I kind of like grew up like kind of seeing them watch the games. One day my mom, we actually had before we had like where we live now, we lived in some other area of Queens, and it was like a kind of like a wood backboard, and it kind of got like struck in a
Yes.
storm, so it was like half broken, and it was like under a tree. So I when I told my mom I wanted to learn how to play, she like cut like a branch of the tree off, and then like
Um,
kind of freed up some space for me to shoot, and she kind of like taught me to shoot. She would always beat me back then. Like she can't really say that anymore because like I mean I hope she like skips this part of the interview when she watches it, but yeah, like that, like parents I feel like are a really like big driving factor in like our like kids at like a young age kind of like push us and like kind of show us like different opportunities like what can present themselves in our future. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's true. And they're also the barometer for your success or non-success. Like a lot of young girls, especially in some of the countries we have NBA academies in, they don't see the value in sports for girls. And so they are fighting against someone at home saying no, no, no,
Right.
and society saying no, 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 but still pushing on. So I give really big props to those young girls who are still pushing on and working and trying to become their authentic selves through basketball.
Yeah, most definitely. So originally, as you stated, you grew up in the South, but more in particular Georgia, where you attended TW Josie High School. But for college, you moved to Austin, Texas to attend St. Edward's University to play
Mhm.
for Coach Dave Mickey. What was it like to
Mhm.
move on from like your hometown to pursue a collegiate career?
Um, so it's a little more complicated than that. I actually went to a D1 school in Atlanta, Georgia State,
Oh,
my first year. I was pregnant, had my baby. Um, the coach wanted me to come. I went there. He got fired in the middle of the season.
wow.
So the new coach didn't want me there with my daughter, and I wasn't leaving her. So my mom had just she was still in the military during the summer before, but she was getting out and was moving to Austin. And so I lived with my dad. He raised me for most of my life. And so I was like, okay, I took me and my daughter, boarded a bus, and went to Texas. I had no plans on playing basketball again. At that point, I'd only been playing 2.5 years. So it wasn't like something I loved, or it was a way for me to go to college. That was really my driving force then. And so when I got to Austin, I was working at a
Wow.
yogurt shop, which shall remain nameless. And another coach from another team, Concordia Lutheran College, came in and asked me if I was standing on something, if I wanted to play or practice. And I told him, no, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm just going to work. I'm going to go to college. I want to take care of my daughter. And he was really kind. He came in another day and just asked me again. And then he was like, why don't you just come? We're doing summer workouts. It was the summer. And he was like, work out with my kids. My girls are great. And just get yourself in shape and see how it goes from there. So I literally showed up one day after work, and they were doing like some running drills and some shooting drills. And I was like, it's fine. I wanted to have friends that were my age because I just moved there with my mom and I didn't know anyone. So I was like, this is going to be great. I can hang out. I can kind of sort of play basketball if I want to. And the one great thing was that the campus had housing for single parents, adults, married people, which not a lot of schools at that time had.
Right.
So it was great. I was working out. It was awesome every day after work. And one of my friends who was going to the church I was attending, I told him about it. And she was like, if you're working out for them, you should come where I play. And she played at St. Edward's. Her name is Erin Cephas. And she was like, you should come play here. So I was like, I don't know about that. So she was like, no, you should come practice. We do pickup like this day. Come and play pickup with us. And it was an NAI school at that time. Now it's Division II. But I was like, okay, I didn't know what the rules were regardless. So I went out and I played, and I didn't know Coach McKee was watching. I was just playing with the girls, but it was clear to him, as he's told me, that I was too talented for him to let me leave the gym that day. So he came up, and him and the athletic director, John Noor, were like, you need to be playing for St. Ed's. We can offer you this partial scholarship. We don't have housing. You can get loans, all this stuff. We have grants, we have Pell Grants, we have St. Ed scholarships that were from the community of St. Edward's for students. And I'd really loved the atmosphere that the girls were playing with. They were free, they accepted me. I had my daughter there while I was doing the pickup, and they were playing with her while I was playing. And it just felt good and right. And that's how I ended up at St. Edward's. I stayed. And the next year, I got offers from other D1 schools to leave St. Edward's. But for me, it was about loyalty and kindness. And St. Edward's made a way. Like my president at the time, Patricia, she allowed me to bring my daughter to school, to class. When I had tests, she would be running around our atrium. It's called Moody Atrium, while I was sitting in the doorway of the class taking my test. They were just so welcoming, and it was the right space. And it was about humanity. They treated me like a human in need instead of a basketball player they could take something from. And so I just decided to stay there, and I had an amazing career. And everywhere I go, I take St. Edward's with me because they were the ones who helped me become what I am today.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, you had an amazing career at St. Edward's. You were the NAIA National Player of the Year in 1993, selected to the 1993 Kodak NAIA All-American team, member of the 1992 NAIA All-American second team, and set school records for career scoring, most points scored in a single season, highest scoring average at 24.5 points per game, and even the highest field goal percentage. When you hear all these accolades over the course of your college career at St. Edward's, what comes to mind?
Amazing. It's literally amazing. I would have never guessed that kid from Augusta, Georgia, would be able to do those things in that setting. No, in any setting. Mind you, I'm talking about, I literally had played 15, 16 and part of 17 because I was pregnant in a month at 18 in college. So literally I'm like a 3-year kid just doing exactly what Coach McKee told me. Because there were some days, because I was a single parent, I wasn't eating and I was still going to practice. I was still going to games. Like I didn't have money for everything. I had to pay rent, I had to pay electricity. I had to make sure my daughter had clothes and diapers and food. And sometimes there wasn't enough money to do all that. So I was still playing, you know, I would have like a sandwich a day and would be playing, or eat ramen and still
Wow.
be playing. So when I think of that, I'm just really thankful. It took a lot of guts and perseverance to be able to do those things, but also it was just a great atmosphere. Like I said, the girls were amazing that I played with. Those women left a mark, an indelible mark on me, about what sisterhood and what basketball, and also what being a good human was really about. And friends still to this day, and just amazing people. And that time when I think about all those records, I think about all of them with me. Who
Right.
does that alone in basketball? There's no way I could have scored that much, had that many rebounds, that been an All-American, all of those things that we did. I think we were like 85-8 in 3 years.
Wow.
And it was just because we were just all so good, and we were symbiotic. We worked together so well. The synergy was amazing, even off the court. Even for me to be a single parent, like they loved my daughter. They hung out with me. It wasn't like, oh my God, she has a kid, she's a terrible person. It was like, oh yeah, come on in our group. We love you. We appreciate what you bring, and we appreciate you. So um, when I think about all those records, I think about them and their place amongst those records with me.
Yeah, most definitely. Um, I know like a lot of NBA players have talked about like their collegiate careers as well. Like I don't know if you've seen The Last Dance, but like that
Yes,
episode of Dennis Rodman where he was like,
yes,
man, like I had like so much adversity in my life,
yes.
and like it was just like the joy of playing. I just like wanted it was like kind of like a getaway from everything else, and like the joy of playing. He was just like always fist bumping out there, running up and down, like always like psychotic with energy. Do you think like the joy of basketball was kind of like helped you like escape, not like escape, but like kind of like helped you like develop like another mentality of happiness to like get away from like the struggles of life in a way?
Yeah, it really does. I've watched The Last Dance quite a few times,
Yeah,
but also knew about Dennis Rodman and Scottie Pippen, just because of the NAIA connection,
right,
and knowing that they came from the same space I came from and a lot of the same struggles that I had. But I think it allows you, like for basketball, it focused me the way nothing else could.
right.
I'm an athlete, so I kind of have ADD. Most athletes do, or we wouldn't be able to do so many things well.
Yeah,
Um, but being a single parent was really tough. When I got on the court and I learned about discipline and how to focus, and like getting in the gym, I used to bring my daughter in her carrier, sit her in our old gym. We had an old and a new gym. I used to sneak into our old gym at like 6 a.m. and I'm doing shots and making sure the shots going in, and I'm playing by myself and rolling the ball out.
right.
I learned that because of basketball and wanting to be the best that I could, but wanting to be a great role model for my daughter. So she could see that I pushed through and I persevered, and that I showed great persistence and dedication to something and didn't just make it a wash. Back where I grew up, there were plenty of teenage mothers that dropped out of school and that weren't doing anything with their lives. And I didn't want to be that. I wanted to break that circle in our family. I wanted to break that circle in my life. I wanted to start something new. And so through basketball and being on the court, I was allowed to dream. Like for me, yes, it was kind of a sanctuary, but it was also like a dream starter. Like everything that I thought was good, I learned by playing, and wins and losses, but a lot of wins. We won a lot. I didn't lose that much to be able to say that shaped me more than the wins did. Um, but it gave me a vehicle, an avenue to dream about some really big things that I, up until that point, I'd never dreamt about.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, like I can like connect to that in a way as well. Like I'm 19 years old. I like a lot of people like say when you're going through like adolescence as well, it's like kind
Mhm.
of like rough period for your life because like you're even nowadays like you have that whole like social media stuff nowadays, and you're
Yes.
like comparing yourself to like other people and all that. And then you have like all these different distractions, and like even like playing basketball, you might not always like get what you want, like where you want to go at the end of the day. But like
Yes.
or like you might get snubbed out of like some other opportunities and stuff like that. But
It's
like
very true.
I always feel like the game kind of like gave me a way of like kind of like thinking over everything else. Like, yeah, like I might have failed in like these aspects of my life, but I can just like, it's just like another way to like motivate myself in a way, like put my head down, like work. Like I remember like this year at college, like I redshirted my first year, and like people would go out on the weekends. I would go to like the gym at like 12 o'clock at night and stuff like that. And
Yes.
I'd be like working out. I'll never forget, I don't mean to talk too much about myself, but
Oh
like
no.
I remember like the night of before like the championship game, because our school won like the league championship. And it was like cool. It was like really cool. But like, of course, you like, I feel like I'm a part of it because I'm on the team and stuff like that. But like, you want to be out there, you want to be in the jersey,
Hmm.
like with your guys and stuff like that. But like the night before, like bleachers are out. Everyone's like, a lot of like all my other friends and stuff, they're at the frats. They're texting me. I'm like, nah, like it was just me alone, like man in the arena, LeBron vibes kind of in a way.
Yes.
Championship posters up like all around. Like I literally remember it. I was in there until like 2 o'clock in the morning, and the game was at like 11 or 12
Wow.
the next day. So I only
Wow.
remember I feel like the game really gives you a chance to like learn more about yourself in a way, like
Hmm.
when things aren't really going your way, and like help motivate you and push you to like another level in a way
It
to like
does.
help you succeed. But that's enough about me. Sorry
I
about
agree
that.
with that completely. That's all. That's not just you. You speak for all, I think all of basketball community when you say that. It does. Absolutely.
Well, in 1996, back to your career, you were drafted into the ABL, American
Mhm.
Basketball League, by the Philadelphia Range. At this point in your career, what was your mindset?
So 96, I'm 26 years old. I have my daughter. I was just like, okay, I had been overseas for 3 years at that time. So I've been away from my daughter. I didn't take her overseas with me the first few years. So being able to be home was like a game changer. So I jumped at the opportunity. I had heard rumblings about the WNBA, um, especially after the Olympics. But I was like, yeah, that's in another year. What am I gonna go overseas and play for that year when I have this opportunity in the ABL to actually play now and not have to worry about going back overseas and have my daughter with me? And that was really important to me because she was 8 and I wanted her to have something stable.
Right.
At the time, I knew about the other women's leagues that had not made it, but I was really interested in just being home in the US and playing in front of Americans and my family and
Right.
them seeing me play and my daughter seeing me play. That was important for me as well, especially since at that time I was starting to recognize that I loved the game and I love what it was doing to me and for me. So when it came around, I was like, okay, mind you, I'm an NAIA player. So for me, it was like, okay, I'm going to go to this tryout. Not knowing it was like, I don't know, 400 folks there.
That's
But
insane.
my agent at the time, who's also an amazing and Hall of Famer, Clarissa Davis Wrightsell from the University of Texas, she was my agent at the time. And her husband were like, you should go to this tryout and see if you make it. Like, I didn't have a big name. No one knew who, at the time I was Taj McWilliams. No one knew who Taj McWilliams was. So when it came around, I jumped at the opportunity just to be at home, just to be there. I didn't know I was going to make a team. I was just happy to have the opportunity to try out. And if I didn't make a team, I could go back overseas and play.
Right. Most definitely. Funny thing you mentioned the Olympics, because in 1998, you were actually named to the USA national team.
Mhm.
So that summer you traveled to Berlin to compete in the FIBA World Championships. What was it like to like play on that huge stage, the global stage so early on in your career? And how did it feel to walk away with the gold medal in the end?
So two things about that. One, it was interesting because my first year of professional basketball, I played in Germany. So being
Oh,
able to go back, 5 years later and be in Germany again,
it's like a
speaking
full circle
German,
moment.
yeah, and
That's
seeing
crazy.
the German teammates I played with on my German team were all national team players. So
Oh,
5 years later, I see the same players on the national team. So it was so crazy. It was like a weird full circle moment to be able to reunite with my teammates who saw me when I was 22 and just coming overseas to now 28 and being part of this amazing USA team. But I didn't get to play. I actually replaced or maybe I did play. I'm kind of old, so I'm not certain. But I believe I replaced Tina Thompson, who happened
oh
to be
wow.
injured at that time. So I was like a replacement player, basically.
Okay.
So I was there, I was cheering, it was awesome. We had a great time. But for me, it's the ultimate to be able to represent your country. Like I had always hoped that I could. I remember in college, I wrote an article from the 92 when we allowed our professionals, because
Right.
other countries had players that were playing professionally that were on their national team,
Right.
but they
We
still
couldn't
let
use the
them compete.
NBA before, right?
Correct. But that was the first year, and I wrote this big essay and had it printed in the local paper in Austin about um, amateurism and the Olympics, because that was a dream for me.
Right.
And right up until I was the last cut in the 2004 Olympics, I honestly, or 2007, what was that? 2007, I was in LA. So yeah, 2008, I guess, Olympics. Um, I had,
What was that, Beijing? I think it was.
yes, China. I had prayed and hoped that I would be good enough to play in the Olympics for my country. And I got the opportunity of a lifetime when I went to Berlin and just was around those amazing women. And it does something for you when you're around excellence. And you're talking
Right.
about the best in every country are coming to meet on this stage and play for the opportunity to be in the Olympics, because 98 led to 2000. And so for me, just being there and just soaking it all in and thinking, man, at the time I thought, in 2 years, I can be on the Olympic team
Right.
in 2000. It didn't come to fruition, but that was like my goal. And I was like steadfast that that's what I wanted to do, and I would get an opportunity. Unfortunately, I did not get an opportunity to be in the Olympics, but I relished the opportunities I had to play with the senior national team. Because again, a kid from NAIA, you'd never, back then it was unheard of because everyone viewed NAIA as less than.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was just a great accomplishment, again, to represent St. Ed's and everything I got from them in a global sense and in a global space. So for me, that was enough.
Yeah, most definitely. It's funny thing you say that about NAIA schools. Like, I remember when I was going through like the recruiting process, a lot of like peers of mine and all that stuff. It was like, and the perception now for like high school players is like
Mhm.
Division 1 or bust. Like, I don't know if you've heard that
Yes.
before. And I have a trainer, Tamar Adams. He actually moved to North Carolina like a couple years back, but like he used to hold like workouts for us, and he would wear like all these like different like theme shirts. So I like the shirt that I remember, it was like Division 1, D2, D3, JUCO, NAIA, and he was like, they're all like this, and it said like same level on it, equals like same level or something like that. Because like he's like, we think we're better than JUCO, we think we're better
Yes.
than NAIA, but you have to work twice as hard to be like half as good as like a Division 1 player, like half of these kids out there. So like, it's a funny thing you say that because it's like he would always like push us and like kind of like instill that mindset that no, we're not better than this. We have to like work to get to where we want to be at the
Yeah.
end of the day.
And your favorite team, the Heat, Duncan Robinson came from a D3 school.
Oh
Like
yeah,
now it's,
Williams College.
yeah, now it's not such a big deal. But you got an NBA player that played in Division 3. You got a couple. He's
Yeah,
not the
Jimmy
only
Butler.
one.
He was at like a Division 1 JUCO school and then transferred
Yes.
to Marquette.
Yes. So it's the stigma is not the same anymore. But back then, I mean, I, honestly, at one of the senior team tryouts, because back then with USAB, unlike now we have a committee that picks players for the women, and you have to go to these different you got to get invited to go. Back
Right.
then it was like a group. They invited a bunch of the best players, and we all played and practiced, and there were cuts made every so many days until they got to their final group. So
That's insane.
I guess this was 93 going into the 94. And I was told that because I wasn't good enough because I went to an NAIA school
That's
by a
insane.
coach at the camp. So I was getting cut, but then she was like, "Oh, keep working, but you're not as good as these other players because they're Division 1 and you went to an NAIA school," as if that meant something. And it was just like a stab, like you stabbed me in the back. Like we're all, not to mention I was killing them because again, the talent is the same. I choose to go what school I wanted to go to. I
Yeah,
could have
exactly.
to another Division 1, but that's not what was best for me in my situation. So, as you said, I think it's the same game. You all have to work. I had to work extremely hard to be really great at NAIA, the same way I worked hard when I was in Division 1 and playing for Georgia State. I took the same skill set, but I think I wouldn't have developed as well as I did if I had stayed in D1, whether it was in the classroom or on the court, because I had really great mentors and teachers, and my classes were like, there's 12 people in my classes. So if I was
Yeah.
missing, my professor knew it. He would call and say, hey, what's going on? Is your daughter
Yep.
sick? Are you okay? Whereas when I was in Georgia State, I was in my lecture class was a class of 120 people. There was
Yep.
no way the professor knew I was even there. And I'm a small town kid. And so for me, that was what was great for me. And I also try to instill in kids that is not D1 or bust, because they're looking at specific people. And I think some kids learn it the hard way when you see all these kids in transfer portals.
Yep.
Everything they think about some of these schools is not what's happening when they get there, and they want to play,
They
and
think
they're
it's all like the
transferred
glitz
to
and
somewhere they
glamour.
want to play.
Yeah, exactly. They think it's all like the glitz and glamour about it because you see all like, again, I say like social media is like
Social media,
a
yeah.
big thing about it. Like everyone wants to do like that top 4 posts, like big
Yes, it's
commitment
true.
edit or something like that going on, where it's
Very
like
true.
I can get like, look how many people are gonna repost it or get like how many likes I'm gonna get.
It's
But like
true.
at the end of the day, like you're just gonna be like sitting there. If you like, even Coach T, like my trainer, he also told me like go where you're wanted, not where you want to
Yes,
go. That's like another key
that
word
is a
advice he
big
told me.
deal. That's a big thing. Like it, and if you're wanted at a lot of places, that's great. But then you can decide. But you
Yeah,
should know exactly where you want now and where you're wanted. Like that's big. I tell players that all the time. When they talk to me about it and I talk to kids, they're always D1. Oh, I want to go to this school. I want to go to this school. And then some of them, honestly, don't have the talent for that level. And someone has told them, whether it's their AAU coach, their parents, or some ancillary person roaming around, that they're D1 material and they're not. And
right.
it's up to us, like the basketball community, to let them know that it's okay to go to Division 2. Like I was a head coach in Division 2. I loved coaching D2 kids because there's a balance between athletics and academics.
Exactly.
Every school that I've coached at, college, has been a high academic school because I think that's so important, especially for women's basketball. Rice University, high academic. Boston University, high academic. And then I went to Post, and it's a Division 2, and it's academics and athletics are the same. There's no difference. Like they don't make you come in the summer. You have your whole summer off. You come in and you can't have practices and games during finals and midterms. So those situations appeal to kids, and you still get to play. I played at NAIA, and I still got all those awards, and I still thankfully was inducted into the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame. And again, people know who I am, and I am thrilled because I just get to tell them more great things about schools that aren't the Power 5 conferences and how
Right.
great those schools can be for them.
Yeah, of course. So now let's focus on your WNBA career.
Mhm.
In 1999, you were drafted by the Orlando Miracle. How did it feel to get drafted, and what was your goal heading into your rookie year?
Yeah. So I went through another big tryout for the W once the ABL folded that next year. And I wore a red headband. And I remember being in the elevator with Cheryl Miller, who was the coach of the Phoenix Mercury at the time. And she was
Mhm.
like, oh, red headband. Oh, yeah, gosh, I love you. I'm going to draft you early. Oh, yeah, we got to have you. So back then, there was not a draft like you see now. I think I remember being called on the phone, a real phone in my house, called and told I was going to Orlando, but it was like third round. I got drafted 35th or 30. I don't remember what number, but it was late in the third round. And so there were not high hopes that I would stay on the team. because
Right.
they drafted a lot of my ABL compatriots were drafted, assigned. They assigned Nikisha Sales from UConn, who had just come off her Achilles. Well, she was still, but come off her Achilles injury the year before. They assigned a bunch of players, great players. Katie Douglas was there from just coming off winning at Purdue with Carolyn Peck, who was our head coach.
Wow.
So I stepped in a training camp that I don't think there were high hopes that I was going to make the team. I was like the third post down the line, outside of Tari Phillips, who they assigned to the Orlando Miracle because she's from Florida, and there was a lot of regional picks happening. So you had a regional, especially because we were an expansion team. So you had regional picks, you had assigned picks, and then you had the actual draft. And so in that sense, I was like fifth round, if you can count it like that.
Wow.
But I just came in, I'm unlike a lot of the players, I have been playing overseas. So I had some skills that a lot of them didn't have, and my work ethic was second to none. Like I was still running outside, I was doing cross country, I was running miles, like everything about me was something that a lot of people probably didn't know when they saw my name. And they were like, oh, who's this random person she's drafting? Maybe I saw her at the draft combine, I don't remember. But I'm thankful because Coach Peck had an open mind. So it really wasn't about NAIA or D1 or D2. It was about players that were going to fit a system that she had in her mind. And she was the first African-American coach to win a national title. She's coming from Purdue, winning a national title, coming to the Orlando Miracle. So she was also a rookie pro coach.
Right.
So I had a great opportunity as a 29-year-old mother of two rookie to come into the league, to come into training camp and have an opportunity to prove myself to stay. And so for me, it was just like, how can I prove myself every day that I belong here? Even when I had imposter syndrome, where I was looking at all of the people there like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? I am literally 6'2". Tari Phillips, who was assigned there, who was a regional assignment, 6'4.5". Like we had some other, it was just like we had a champion, Yolanda Moore, who had played with the Comets and won titles. Right. So I'm looking at this group like, and in my head, I'm like, I'm from an NAIA school. Like, what am I going to do here with all these great people? Like, it was crazy, the thought process. But I just went out and worked. And my thought when I got drafted and went there was like, again, how can I do something that would make Coach Peck keep me on this team? That's all I wanted to do. And that's every day, literally every day in training camp. I was afraid. And I think that's sometimes missing in some of our kids today. That fear, it was a great fear. It motivated and pushed me. Fear is not always bad. And I think it gets a bad rap that if you're afraid of something or you have fear, then you're afraid of something. But my fear was great because it pushed me to be better, to be the better version of Taj that I could be in the WNBA as a pro athlete, to people who had never seen me play, except in this combine that everyone had. But people weren't watching the ABL. The W wasn't, maybe they were. I was watching the W while I was in the ABL, but I don't know if they were watching the ABL because most of them were going overseas.
Right.
Because the first years of the WNBA, the salary wasn't anything. And people complain now. But in 1999, I wasn't made. I could have worked somewhere else and made more money with my degree I had. So I played because it was passion and I wanted to, not because I thought I was going to get rich doing it. So yeah, that was my mindset. I was going in as a 28-year-old mother of two rookie in Orlando, and I just wanted to make the team. And every day I was like, what can I do to show her that I should make this team? And apparently my defense won her over.
That's always a great way to like get on the court. Like everyone always tells me like energy guys, rebounding and defense has like a spot on every roster no matter what. Like look at Udonis Haslem, guys like that made a career out of it.
It's
But funny thing you mentioned fear actually. Like on a personal note, like I always think like since the off season started, like I was like, man, I don't want to be like sitting there just in like a polo again at like the end of the bench. Like since I've been home, like I haven't been able to like sleep sometimes because I'm like thinking about, oh man, like I can't like let that happen again. So I do like everything I can. Whereas like get like 2 workouts in with like my trainers or something like
Mhm.
that. I even started working out with like this pro player who like started working who plays in Japan. Like I
Oh,
started working
nice.
out with him. Yeah, so it's like he can like push me too and like try and like help me out, get like the strength and all that. Oh,
You want to get all, take everything.
yeah,
I tell players all the time, especially young players, take all the advice, take all the help. When someone offers it, take it. Like I've offered help to players who have gotten cut, who are post players. I'm like,
yeah,
hey, give me a call. I don't force myself on them. I give them my number. I was like, hey, give me a call if you want my help. I've
right,
not heard from them. And then I see, 2 or 3 weeks, 2 or 3 months later, they're cut. I don't see them
yeah,
again. And I'm like, hey, probably should have called me because I know this business and I know
yeah,
what they're looking for. But those things, that energy, that's all I did. I used to run back and up and down, up and down because my stamina was so great because I
right.
was running
Yeah,
3 miles and 2 miles outside like no other basketball player ever does or
yeah,
wants to do. So I would just sprint all the time, sprint, 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 good energy, sprint. And that's what got me on the team and kept me for a lot of years. And I played defense really hard. I didn't score a lot of points, but I played really great defense, and it kept me for all the years that I played from the moment I stepped on the court until I stopped. That's what people remember about me.
right. Most definitely. Well, you did an amazing job. To
Thank
go
you.
on further in your WNBA career. In 2004, you were a member of the starting team of the 2004 WNBA All-Star squad that played against a select group of players from the USA basketball team. I thought this was like really amazing. I had to bring this up when I was doing my research. So the game was held in place of the regular WNBA All-Star game was basically like a kind of like a send-off in a way for the
Yes.
USA basketball squad prior to the participation at the 2004 Summer Olympics in Athens, Greece. What was it like
Mhm.
to play in this game?
That if you're not going to be on the Olympic team, you should be playing against the Olympic team. And
Yeah,
so for me, it was the same feeling like I'm going to help our Olympic team by playing hard so they can whoop up on everybody else when they get to the Olympics. That was so surreal. Um, I think we're at Radio City Music Hall.
yeah,
We played at Radio City. So just being part of, again, history being made, that was a historic moment. Not only playing against the Olympic team, but being in Radio City, also scary because that stage drop off is treacherous.
really.
But it's like, wow, I'm playing against the best team in the world right now because we had won the last since 96. We won all of the Olympics up to that point. And that was our group that was going to the Olympics. And so for me, I'm like, I'm one of 11 players that is playing against our national team, the 12 best players in the world, basically. And I'm the next group of players.
Right,
So when you think of it like that, it was like, whoa, I didn't sleep the night before. It was an all-star game. So you think fun, fun, fun. We had a lot of things to do. But the night before the game, I couldn't sleep. I don't know what I was doing. I think I was doing my hair or something to keep my nerves down so I
right.
could just be calm for the game and enjoy the game. But when you think of it in that terms, historic, we're in Radio City Music Hall, never been done before. I'm playing against one of 11 people to play against the 12 best people, best women's basketball players in the world, and on that stage and for the WNBA. So it was just gravy. All of that was like amazing. And I had my family with me. So it was even more. My husband was there. We had a 1-year-old daughter we had just had, like coming back from that and being able to be picked for that. Indescribable.
Yeah, that's amazing. I actually been to Radio City many times to see like the Rockettes when my mom used to take me there.
Yes.
It really is a great like stage over there. You had MJ doing Man in the Mirror there in
Oh yeah, that's true.
1988. So it is a great stage. I bet there's greatness in the air that night in a
And it
way.
was. And scary because I think Swin Cash went to run after a loose ball and then stopped short. Like the ball can keep going because that's the edge of the stage. You
Yeah,
don't think about it when you're playing that you're on a stage that you could literally kill yourself if you fall off of. You think in basketball, so oh, what can I do? What oh no, that ball went off. You run after it, then you're like, whoa, wait a minute, there's an edge of a stage here.
Yeah,
You can't run too far too fast.
that's insane. So during your WNBA career as well, as I stated before, you're a two-time champion. Your first was with the Detroit Shock in 2008, and your second was with the Minnesota Lynx in 2011. Can you talk a little bit about the journey to winning these two championships for these two different organizations? Especially, how did it feel to be such a key contributor to that 2011 championship so late in your career? Like, did you ever have like the moment like when Isaiah Thomas was like singing like "Heaven must be like this"?
um, I'll start with 2008. I got traded. So I had played Orlando/Connecticut Sun. We got moved to Connecticut. And I got traded from there in 2007 to the Sparks because Lisa Leslie was pregnant and was having her daughter. And they wanted someone to shore up their center position until she came back. And it so happened we had a terrible year, drafted Candace Parker, and they traded me while I was at the national team tryouts in Beijing.
Wow.
I was actually sitting on the floor of the hotel with Lisa and her baby girl when I got traded to Washington Mystics, who then in 2008 traded me to Detroit during the Olympic break. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to Detroit at the time, the bad boys. It was just after the fight between the Sparks and Detroit Shock.
Ooh.
Yeah, there was a big fight. But Cheryl Ford had torn her ACL. She had had a partially torn one, but she was going to try to stop the fight and stepped wrong and it tore her ACL all the way. So she was out. So they traded for me from DC to get to Detroit. Bill Laimbeer is the architect of that. Bill Laimbeer, Rick Mahorn, and Cheryl Reeve, who became the head coach of Minnesota.
Right.
Those were my three coaches. And so I got there, and Katie Smith and Deanna Nolan were the leaders of the team. You had Cheryl Ford, Kara Braxton, but by far the top players were Katie Smith and Deanna Nolan. And Bill traded for me in the middle, and I think we had some kind of event, season ticket holder event. They introduced me. They were all excited. But after the event, Bill took me into his office, and this was before analytics were a big thing. And he started writing these numbers and talking to me about them. And he was like, this is how many shots we take a game, shot attempts. This is how many shot attempts Katie Smith's going to have. This is how many shot attempts Deanna Nolan's going to have. And this is what's left over. And he said, this is how many shots I could get you. Now, these were all numbers I didn't know anything about. Bill Laimbeer is a genius, actually a guru. He went to Notre Dame.
Right.
I think his majors were economic and finance, double major. He's just the smartest man on the planet, basically, which is why people don't like him, because he's arrogant. But these numbers, and I was like, okay, I know what these numbers look like. And so he was like, this is how many shots you're going to get. The rest you're going to need to get from offensive rebounds, these points. And if you average, I don't know, I think it was like 13.3 points, and I don't know, I think it was like 7.9 rebounds or 7.6 something. And again, this was before analytics. People weren't using these kind of numbers. We're going to win. We'll win a championship. That was our conversation. I was like, I believed them, because I was like, I don't know any different. Okay, if you say so. We won a championship, and at the end, I was off some points on both of them, but I actually averaged exactly what he said. Right. And we won the championship. But at the time when he told me, I was like, I think this guy is bonkers, because again, nobody uses stats and analytics like they do now. It's like you breathe. How many breaths does she take every game? Oh, 199. Well, we need her to take 250. Like, everything's about numbers now, and stats and analytics and how it relates to the game. But for then, it was unique. But I left out of there thinking, oh my God, I'm playing for a crazy guy. Like, okay, sure, I'm going to get those numbers. Who knew? When we won the title, I'd been to the finals quite a bit. I've been to the finals in the ABL and lost. I've been to the finals overseas and lost. I've been to the finals in the W, my years with Connecticut, and lost. And so for me, winning, it was so surreal. Like, I had started believing that it was me. The reason why I wasn't winning was because of me. That had been my mindset. Like every time I'm like, what's the common denominator? It's me. I'm overseas with 10 different players. It's me. I'm in Connecticut. It must be me. We have this great record in Connecticut the next year. It must be me. The reason we're losing the finals. And so when I got to Detroit, I had people that were willing to take the burden off of me, willingly or unwillingly, and take some of it on themselves. Katie Smith, Deanna Nolan, Cheryl Ford, Lynette Pearson, all of our players Elaine Powell were playing with a chip on their shoulders, even though they had already won 2 championships before that. And so I was able to like accept that I was part of a group and not just, it wasn't just on me. It was our job to win the championship. So when we won, I think I was in tears. I think there's a video or a picture of Lynette Pearson hugging me, and I can't even lift my arms because I am bawling, because it's like a weight was taken off of me. Like, again, it's that imposter syndrome, because I'd heard so much about NAIA not being good enough, that it became part of who I was when I was losing. Like, oh my God, I'm great enough in NAIA, but I can't win the big one. Maybe because I'm NAIA. So that win was like shedding of all of those years of me feeling like it was me and I was the reason, because I didn't go to a big enough school. I didn't have a big enough name. And it was just catharsis. I was in a state of catharsis. Like, that win was cathartic for me to be able to move forward and say that I was good enough, and that the culmination of all my hard work, all my days without my kids, my husband, meant something more than just, man, she's a great post player. And that's what the win in Detroit did for me. It opened up my ability to see myself in terms that were more than what I said before. Like, the greatness that people had seen and the expectation of greatness, I was able to fully encapsulate that and take that into my being as I move forward, that I was worthy and I was worthy as a basketball player. And when I got to Minnesota at that age, like Cheryl Reeve, because of our history, she had coached in Charlotte when I was in the W. She was my assistant coach and then my general manager in Detroit and assistant coach. So I had history with her, just knowing who she was. Because I literally was going to give up the W and just play overseas. I'd left New York. I just finished in New York with Ann Donovan the year before, and I played overseas. And I was like, do I want to continue playing? I'm 41, and I'm 40 at the time, actually. I turned 41 in October, so while we were in the finals. But when Cheryl Reeve called me, I was like, do you want me to talk to you about another player? And, I think she was in Australia when she called me the first day of free agency. And she was just like, hey, Taj, I need you on my team. I was like, I'm not going to Minnesota. That's not a place I want to be. And I knew they had the first pick, which everyone knew was going to be Maya Moore, but that wasn't drawing me there. I was like, it's Minnesota. I don't want to play in Minnesota. At the time, Minnesota had not been good. I think they've been to one playoff game, one playoff in their whole existence. Even though Lindsay Whalen was there, who I played with in Connecticut, Rebecca Brunson, who beat me for finals in Sacramento. I was like, and Simone Augustus, who I'd known since she got in the league. I was like, you got 3 players and y'all still aren't winning. Like, nah, y'all are lottery. You got Maya Moore. So that's clearly means you're not winning. And I was just like, no, Minnesota. And then I was like, Coach, why you want me? I'm old. And she was just like, I want you to shore up. We need a leader. I need a defensive leader, and I need someone in the locker room. Simone, Rebecca, and Lindsay are all 3 are really quieter. And then Maya coming in as a rookie, you don't expect her to be loud and running things at that time. So long story short, I just told her, yeah, I don't know. And I said, what's your second choice? I do remember telling her that. And she was like, I don't have a second choice. You were it. And I think that sold me. Lindsay Whalen called me, Brunson called me, but it sold me that she felt like at 40, about to turn 41, I was the best for her team at that time. And turned out I was the best for her team at that time. But I wouldn't have known that. I just took it on faith on what she said she was going to do. And the trust I had in her because of our previous relationship, that she was going to do that. And went to Minnie, signed a 1-year deal because I was like, I don't know about this. I'm 40. I'll be 41 like in October. I don't know how long I can play. But winning the title with that group, who are still my sisters today, was more than I could have ever hoped for. So 3 years passed from 2008. And I'm like, okay, I won my one title. I'm pretty happy about that. I beat Charles Barkley. That's always important to me. My guy Charles. And so I was thrilled to be part of that team, and more than thrilled to be part of Simone Augustus's legacy.
Right.
Maya Moore's legacy, Lindsay Whalen's legacy. We already had it. Rebecca Brunson already had a legacy, but just being part of extending her legacy and winning that title was like gravy for me, like more than I could have ever hoped for. They made me feel young. They made me feel wanted. They made me feel happy. Like it wasn't, okay, I was the old lady, and Simone made sure I remembered that. But it wasn't like that on the court. It was like the elder statesperson, like the statesman. I was the one that came to for advice. I was the one who was sitting around listening to our coaches talk about what we're going to do in the game. I was the one that they were forcing me to go tell coach that this was too much practice or we need a day off. Like it was like the best of both worlds. My age made me a contemporary and someone that the coaches respected, and my age also helped me be able to help them grow into their leadership roles better, by taking some of the burden off of them of having to do it too soon, too early, too soon, which I think we do a lot of. And so I was thankful for the opportunity to win a title. I think in videos you see me hugging Simone Augustus, because I remember that feeling of not getting anywhere close to winning a title and then winning. I remembered that feeling from 3 years ago. And I just wanted her to know, me hugging her, and I was whispering in her ear some things that I won't share, but just her greatness and her perseverance in getting through those knee injuries and surgeries and all of that stuff to get to that point, falling off of her the same way I felt when it fell off me in Detroit. And knowing that she's not defined by never going to the finals and never winning a championship. But that was the beginning of a legacy of every other year winning titles after titles after titles, and becoming the dynasty that they were. And most recently getting inducted into the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame with both Simone and Maya, Lindsay going the year before, and we're waiting on Rebecca Brunson, who should be going this next year, if it's up to me. So all 5 of us should be in the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame in consecutive years, because that's
amazing.
Only
That's amazing that you were able to get that like sort of position like so late in your career. Like I'm a firm believer that like vets are really important to like team success, especially in the playoffs. So you see it on a lot of like NBA rosters as well. Like Udonis has them with all like the Miami Heat runs in the last like 5 years. Al Horford and what he's doing with the Celtics right now.
True.
Even Paul Pierce when he was with Washington with John Wall and Bradley Beal for that little playoff run right there. Like, because
Very true.
like you guys have been in the game for so long, been playing longer than all these young guys, and the young guys come in, they're like so talented, they want to just go, go, go. But you guys know how to like kind of tame them a little bit and show them how to win at the end of the day. Because we even saw this, like, I don't mean to just go off on a tangent about like NBA basketball or basketball in general here, but we saw this in the playoffs with like the Indiana Pacers. Like they're a young team. You had like
Yes.
Nemhard, even
Yes.
Siakam. He's there kind of like slowing down the pace a little bit. But you have like guys like Nemhard, Halliburton who've never been there, so they're going like 100 miles per hour.
It's
And
true.
like especially in like the last couple games, I think it was game 4. Yeah, game 4.
Hmm.
Nemhard, it was like a 2-point game. Instead of like
Hmm.
dribbling out the clock a little bit, he had like 30 points. So he's like, oh, I'm just
Yes.
gonna go to the rim. I'm gonna see if I can get a foul. And he ends up getting picked, and then Celtics go and win the series. If like
Yeah, it's true.
if they had more vets on that team, maybe like they slow it down, you
Very
run like a
true.
half court set and get something going. But that's kudos to you guys for like how well you guys know how to win in the playoffs at that role of
But
being like
you
the vet
see
of the
it too in
team.
the old school. Remember, I think Magic Johnson talked about that. Like they won the first game he won. He ran up and jumped on Kareem.
Yeah,
He's like he won the championship. And Kareem told him to get down. It's only
yeah,
82 or something. But that's the balance. Like he's so hyped and excited. They came back and won, and he jumping on him. He told him to get out. We got a lot more games to play.
yep,
Like that's exactly where you're talking about how that vet leadership of KAJ and Magic's just exuberance of youthful exuberance. I won my first game.
yep.
Like taper that down, young fellow. We got a long way to go.
But then we
That
kind of saw that later on in his career when like Kareem got hurt in the finals against the Sixers,
yes.
and then he was like sitting on his spot on the plane, and he
Yes.
was like,
But
"No,
that's
we're
that
gonna,
maturity he learned
yeah."
from.
He's like, "We're gonna go and win. I'm gonna play the center." I think he had like 42 points, 15
Yes, he
rebounds,
did.
7 assists or something
Something
like that, and won
crazy.
his first championship. So like Kareem's leadership did help him along the
Yeah.
way.
And that's exactly what it does. For our team with Minnesota, once I left, you had all these great people, Lindsay Whalen, you had Simone stepping up, you had Brunson. They were all quiet,
Right,
naturally quiet people. Maya, naturally quiet people, able to step into their leadership space that they already inhabited, but to be able to vocalize to other people that are coming in the
right.
Minnesota Lynx way, which is what we had.
Yep.
Certain way we're going to play defense, a certain way we were going to act, a certain way we were going to do things. And they once I left, they were able to vocalize that. And you see what it brought, all those championships after championships after
Right.
championships.
Exactly. Even Kenny Smith talked about like that kind of like building of culture before when he was at UNC. He was
Mm-hmm.
like all the incoming freshmen. I don't know if you heard the story. He's like, no, we go and run at night. So it'd be like,
Yes.
go get your running shoes.
Yeah.
Everyone, they're running around campus, and that's just how they did things over there. And it did like UNC is like one of the best college programs of all time now because of that culture over there.
It's true.
That's really amazing. So, as I've stated before, over the course of your career, other than winning the two NBA championships and a 6-time All-Star, you're also a 2-time All WNBA second team, WNBA All Defensive second team, and recognized as basically one of the all-time great post players in league history. So now
Mm-hmm.
reflecting on all those WNBA accomplishments and from your professional career and all these accolades, what comes to mind?
I think when you sit back and reflect on your career and all the accolades you've got, if I say if, a big if you're able to reflect honestly, you always think about the things that you could have done more of in your career. Oh, I wish I'd won this many titles. Oh, I could have won more if I'd done this. Um, for me, I think about that, but then I think about the body of work and impact. And I don't mean just in the game, the impact of what's left in the game, the young people you played with and against, the coaches, the refs, yes, even the refs, the governors, the people that run the team, the front offices. You think about that kind of impact. You think about leaving the game better than you found it. You think about being a role model. Like all of those things leads to spaces that you inhabit now where you can look back and talk about these and you have credibility with the basketball community. And that's for me, when I think about all of those things, that's what I think about. How all of those things led me to the space I'm in now, where because of who I was and how I played and what I stood for, I'm able to stand in front of players now, young and old, and talk about the WNBA and the appreciation of having a league here, of growing up and being able to say, I want to play in the WNBA when you're 8 and you're 9 because of all of the things that the people before you did, and appreciating that space and appreciating the space that says, okay, I'm one of the best post players that ever did it. But knowing there's so many great post players that people didn't know and didn't pay attention to because there was no social media back then. Games weren't on that many TV channels, or people weren't watching them because they didn't think the WNBA was a valid sport. Like, so impact, legacy, and you know what? When it's your life's work and it's your passion, you're thankful. I'm so thankful that I'm blessed and have been blessed to be able to sit here and talk about accolades that I never thought I'd get, that I didn't get into this sport for. I literally wanted a free college education, and I was going to do all these other great things from it. And the trajectory has changed.
Right.
I've still done great things, and I got a college degree, and I have an MBA, and probably will have another degree because I love learning. But the impact that this has been on my life, on my kids' life, my husband's life, on our family's life, on the people I touch every day and talk to lives, like all those accolades mean nothing if there wasn't an impact and a legacy left after, because those are going to disappear. I don't know. I was the all-time leading offensive rebounder in WNBA history, and someone else passed me, and that disappeared. Now I'm second or third. I don't know which one it is, but those accolades will pass away and the impact will stay. The legacy will stay. How you made people feel will stay.
Right.
What you did for the game will stay. Is it better than when you found it? Will stay. And so for me, when I think about all of those, I think about that legacy, that impact.
Most definitely. So currently you are the player relations and development manager at the WNBA. What does this position entail?
So it allows me to have impact in tangible ways with our players. So I work with our current and former players. I'm a bridge builder and I'm a player whisperer, as they tell me. I build bridges between our player population and the league, players and their teams, the teams and the league, GMs in the league, former players in the league, former players with current players. So I build I'm a connector. I connect and build a lot of bridges, but I connect a lot of people with those bridges. People, companies, partners, the league office, the NBA, NBAE. Like, I connect a lot of different people in ways that uplift the game. So I could have, 4 calls with a player, current players that are going through some things and they need to talk to someone. And I'll go and reach out to our mind health clinician director and be like, hey, I talked to such and such. Why don't you just reach out and make sure they're okay? Or if it's a player or a GM, I've talked to the GMs before. A GM called me and be like, or a president will call and say, Todd, what is going on there? What's happening? Can you tell me anything? And I'm a truth speaker as well. I'm like, hey, this is what's happening. This is what needs to be done. You guys need to fix this. Or if it's a player and something happens and I reach out, I'm like, hey, we had this incident with Chicago team with some crazed fan or non-fan or whatever he was, hassling them, heckling them, whatever he was doing. So, later on, I reach out and I'm like, hey, are you okay? Y'all okay? She's like, yeah, I'm okay. The security handle it. Or, yeah, it was kind of weird. A couple of players like, it was weird. It was kind of frightening at first, but our security de-escalated. Like, those are the things that I do for the league. And also I liaison with NBA player development, where I worked for 2 years, to come up with programming and programs that are going to speak to our player population as well. There's a Nike program that incorporates former players, our legends, to Nike. We have about probably 56 legends, WNBA legends, that work at Nike headquarters, whether it's in Beaverton, or some of them work for Converse, which Nike owns in Boston. So I liaison with a lot of groups. I'm working right now with different groups to try to get opportunities for our former players. that weren't around before. So I literally will do anything and everything. I'll be at the draft working with PD. I'm at our all-star game working with our players. I do basketball without borders. I go and coach NBA academies. I do our
Wow.
her time to play clinics, which will turn to junior, will it? No, her time to play clinics where I'm coaching young girls. I do pretty much anything and everything that involves the game, our players or young girls, where we can continually grow the game, uplift the game, and make it better for the next generation.
Wow, that's amazing that you're so like involved in every aspect of the WNBA. That's amazing. So I've been waiting to ask you this question
Okay.
since like the beginning of this interview. So when you look at how much the popularity of the WNBA brand and basically like women's game as a whole, like across all levels, has grown since you were playing, what comes to mind?
Happiness. I'm happy. I mean, I want our players to enjoy the fruits of the labor that they put into this game, while recognizing the pioneers that came before them that built the foundation to be able to be in this space today. And I am so thrilled. I don't have social media. I avoid that at all costs because I guess I have LinkedIn. That's a kind of social media. I have LinkedIn, but I don't have the rest because I
Yeah.
avoid the negativity because I can't live my life like that.
Right.
Um, but I am happy, so happy to know that we got players that could be earning $1 million in the next few years, that we have charter flights for our players. Do I wish that would have been for us? Absolutely. I may not have had this job if it was, but things happen the way they're supposed to happen. And so for me, having being around to see these players get this is a dream come true. It is literally what we all played for.
Right.
I am thrilled beyond measure. I cannot say enough because so many people think there's hatred from the legends on what's going on now when it's not. I work with the legends. I am loving this, and our legends are loving this because when it's your life work again and you are helping build something, you're the foundation. You want it to last because your legacy is also tied up in that. Every player that ever played for the WNBA and will play for the WNBA and are playing for the WNBA, our legacy is tied to the WNBA. Former presidents, our current commissioner, former people that worked in the office, current people that are working in office, all of our legacies are tied into making this the best that it can be forever. The NBA is on 77 years now. We're on 28. Like, we have to make this last for 100 years, however long it can. And as we're moving through the years, we want it to be better and better. When I'm dead and gone and looking down from heaven, I want to know that there's a player that's going to sign a deal for $2.2 million.
Right.
It doesn't matter that I didn't. It only matters that this game is still growing and growing and growing so that when my son, who's almost 3, when he's in the NBA and he's 20, he can see a WNBA player that's going to make 2 mil or 750,000, the lowest salary on the bench. Like, I need him to see that. And every day I push towards that. So when I see the Angel Reese, the Caitlin Clark, the Cameron Brinks, the
Right.
Marquisha Grants, all of them coming together and being able to take advantage of what was built before them, that's what you want. That makes you happy. That makes me happy that all the sacrifices that I made for not seeing my family, injuries, playing through injuries, my 12 knee surgeries between both
Wow.
knees, my ankle surgeries, my shoulder, my back, that it led to that opportunity. And I am so happy, and I want it to continue to grow and get better and better. And anyone that says different is not about women's basketball, because we're all about uplifting the other.
Right.
Everyone gets uplifted in women's basketball. And that's how you know true fan. True fans uplift. They don't denigrate, they don't degrade, they don't talk about hate and all of that stuff. It's basketball. We are trying to make this, everybody, our whole basketball community, especially in the W, past, present, and future. We're trying to make this the longest running league ever. Right now we are, but we wanted to get into 50 years and 100 years, 75 and then 100. And I wanted to keep going so that my kids can still be in the WNBA. And that's what it's all about for me. So when I see this, I'm excited because we're moving in that direction so that in 90 years, 100 years, it's still here, or in 75. So 72, honestly, because we're in 28 seasons. 72 years, it's still here at 100.
Yeah, I totally agree. The women's game, from my perspective, is actually like the growth of it is actually really amazing. Like I went to an all boys school, Salisbury,
Mhm.
Connecticut, all boys boarding school. So like we didn't have a girls team or anything like
Yeah.
that. My private school in Queens that I was going to prior, like basketball, women's basketball there was like a joke. So I wasn't really like
Mhm.
exposed to women like women's basketball like in person. Like, yeah, I went to like WNBA games, like Liberty games with like
Mhm.
my friends and stuff like that, of course. Like go watch the games, like playoff games and stuff like that. But, like
Yes.
I never got like a hands-on opportunity to like view women's basketball in like my own institution until this year. So like I got like pretty close to like two of like two like twins on like the women's basketball team, Ava and Gianna Lobozo. So like
Mm.
they like these two girls are like gym rats. Like I thought I was like I think I'm like a gym rat too. But like these girls, even when I'm like you get those lapses as like an athlete where you're like exhausted and stuff like that. And I
Yes.
remember like me and like Gianna we have like the same schedule or something like that. So she'd be like, "Oh no, let's get in the gym here. Let's get in the gym here." Like I was saying like I want to go for like a run one day and she was like, "Okay, yeah, I'll come with you." And I was like doing a project trying to like get out of it at one point 'cause I was like so exhausted 'cause I worked out like twice before. She was like, "No, we're doing this. Like hit me up right away."
Good.
So we did like a 6 mile run around the lake. Like I never
Good.
like realized like women are actually starting to get like inspired from the WNBA because they watch
Yes.
college, they watch all this sorts of film from the WNBA as well. And like their work ethic and all this stuff is like it pushes
Very
athletes like me and other guys like who are supposed to be like and like outsiders guys who don't play the sport and who don't know a lot about it
Yes.
or like women are athletes are actually like motivating us men as well. So I think that's amazing. And I
That's
have like a
actually cool.
5-year-old sister as well. So like I would like sit her down and like make her watch like their games as well, like when I was home. And like you have her outside now, like trying to do like two ball dribbling and stuff like
Good.
that. I
It's
like take down the
awesome.
hoop and stuff like that. So it's just like from my perspective, I feel like the women's game is like growing at such like a rapid pace now where it's like even it carries over to my personal life. So I think it's like really amazing. And
That's pretty cool.
yeah. So now I don't want to get you in trouble with your job or anything like that. But who who would you say do you think is going to win the WNBA championship this year? And who are your favorite players to watch currently in the league right now?
Okay, so you can't get me in trouble because it's my own opinion.
All right, let's
But
go.
because I'm a Connecticut and Minnesota fan, I want them to be in the finals. And
Okay.
Minnesota has won some games, some championships. I mean, they're tied with Houston for the most. I really like Connecticut to win because I love Alyssa Thomas. I love the way she plays. I love her attitude about the game. She gives 100% all the time, and she's such a great kid.
All right.
I love hanging out with her. I took her, she was at USAB practice. I took her to lunch just to sit and talk to her. She's very quiet until she trusts you. She's a smart kid and she loves this game. I love watching her because that brute force, like just watching her dribble up the court and just people moving out the way because they're like, I'm not getting hit by Alyssa Thomas. AT is big. I just love it. I would have loved to have played against her because I was an undersized center and just match strength. But I love watching her play, and I hope it's my hope and prayer that Connecticut can finally win a title
Right.
because the tribe, the Mohegan tribe, has been really great to women's basketball.
Right. Most definitely. I gotta go. I'm jumping on the bandwagon. The three-peat. I want the three-peat to happen this year.
No,
I
come
want I want
on.
I want Kelsey Plum to get her third championship.
Nah.
I
No,
want
that's not a bandwagon. That's actually a smart bet.
I
But
want I
going
want them
by
to win.
records, Connecticut, I think, is 9-0. So we'll
Long season. It's a long
It's a
season.
long well, not as long for us as other people. We got 30 more games, 31 more games, but
That's still a lot of games though.
it is a lot of games in a few months, but we'll see. Yeah, I normally don't make real predictions until after the break, after All-Star.
Yeah.
Because that's when you really see
That's when you start playing your real
rookies
basketball.
hit
Yeah.
the wall and you see the real basketball come
Right.
out. And especially with the Olympics, it's going to be a lot of wall hitting.
Right.
Um,
I bet.
but you really see it all then. And then you know who really has the strength to pull it out, because really winning the championship becomes less about talent because you're playing the same team over and over, and more about strategy and
Execution too.
execution. But it's what you go back to when you're the most tired, your mind shuts off. You go back to muscle memory. What are you used to doing all the time? And if you spend your time in the gym, your body goes back to that. No matter what you try to do, no matter what your brain tells you, like, no, your legs aren't going to work. Your body goes back to what you do in the gym. That habit over and over, because you're too tired to think.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's about habits then. Okay, every time in the gym, I shot this way. Your arms could be falling off. You're like, I'm going to shoot the same way.
Yeah, muscle memory. Exactly.
Muscle memory and your habits. So I'm hoping it's Connecticut, hoping and praying it's Connecticut, but you never can count out the champs. The champs are here. And no matter how you start, like you said, it's a long season. It really, you could have the worst record and be in 8th place.
Yep.
And win the title.
Yep.
Especially for us, because of the way our playoffs go. So
right.
Like I said, I'm gonna go for Connecticut, Minnesota, either one of them two, because I played for them and I love those teams. But you don't count out the champs.
Right. I can't even like not shout out the Liberty too. I want New York to get a championship as well. That would be crazy.
That would be
Breanna
crazy.
Stewart, and you have Sabrina over there.
It's true.
Trying to get that championship. I think it's a really competitive season so far, from my opinion. Like over the last weekend, yeah, the Sky against the Fever. That was a really good game. I remember watching. Yeah, I went to get a haircut, and me and my barber were like locked in watching it. Like she's
all the games though. There's a game right now on ABC that's going crazy. Like all the games have been so competitive, and I love that. Yes. I mean, we've had some blowouts, yes, that have been on TV, which have been unfortunate. But even the blowouts, like there's a moment where you're like, oh, they're gonna come back. Oh, they may come back. Like they're only down 8, they're only down 6, and then it goes back to 15. But I'm thankful that the games are like that. Like people want to watch, people are tuning in. It's record numbers.
It has more
exciting.
numbers in the NBA finals right now, if I'm not mistaken. It's like I'd rather, like, if I'm being honest, like the WNBA, you guys are getting like way more like TV time from all like these analysts, like First Take and Stephen A. and stuff.
Who never talked about us before.
Then like people, like they're breaking down like the WNBA games and the WNBA schedule more than they're breaking down like what Kyrie and Luka are doing in the finals. Like it's insane, and I love it. Even like all over Instagram.
Too, but I want them to learn the game and learn people's names and things like that before they start talking like they actually know what they're talking about. So they need to get more WNBA former players on those shows so they could talk about the league in the right way. Because who knows more about
process?
The
they're getting there. They're getting.
Yeah, I know.
They're getting
I'm gonna make that suggestion.
It's a start, though. It's a start, and I'm glad it's finally happening. So
I'm gonna need Stephen A to call in to me so I could be on First Take and talk about
call into his show. Like he has like the show, like you know how Shaq called in that one time? That would be funny.
Would be.
You should be like, get me on First Take. You don't know what you're talking about. You're like, who's this?
You don't know what he's talking about.
That would be hilarious. But what I always ask like all my guests who've been on my podcast, as my last question, I always ask them about their future aspirations for their career. What are your future aspirations going forward in your career?
For me, I'd like to be a general manager of a WNBA team. I got my MBA. I came to the league to learn the business of basketball. As an athlete, you know about playing. As a coach, you know about athletes and other things. And what I didn't know was about the business. And I came literally to the league office to learn that part of it. got an MBA. I've been here for 6 years, and I think I'm ready to run a team. And I want to run a WNBA team, not an NBA team.
Right.
I want to stay with the W. I'd like to be a general manager. If not a general manager, then like the VP of basketball operations, something that is in a team level and affects change on a team level. I love being in the league office, but I really feel like I can be more focused and centered on a team level. And that's what I want to do. I want to be a GM. And I hope that I'm building enough knowledge, my knowledge base, to be a viable candidate for a GM position.
All right, most definitely. Well, Miss Franklin, thank you so much for coming on the show today, and I wish you the best of luck going forward and the rest of the season.
Thank you so much, Ashton. Thank you for having me as well. I appreciate it, and this has been awesome.
Thanks for listening to Gen Z Hoops. Make sure to follow, like, and subscribe on Instagram, LinkedIn, and all major social media platforms at Gen Z Hoops. You can tune in and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and every other podcast platform on the planet. Get ready for the next episode.